Tips with Tony. Tips with Tony. All about nutrition from your favorite dietitian. Everything you need to digest in your mind. Tips with Tony. Tips with Tony. Making you healthier one bite at a time. With Tony. Woo!
Hello, and welcome to the Tips with Tony podcast. I'm Tony Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time. Alcohol is a socially acceptable behavior or beverage, drink of choice. However, too much alcohol can cause havoc on our health. Too much alcohol has been linked to high blood pressure, high triglycerides, even some forms of cancer. And unfortunately, I don't think people think of alcohol as something that should be limited in the diet, only because it's part of our kind of everyday social events, parties, and getting together with friends. It's kind of something that we do. Now, if you're not a drinker, then that's great. This podcast is not for you. But this is for those who are 21 and over and who drink kind of regularly or at least socially. And just to give you some tools and tips on how to kind of cut back if you are drinking too much. And I always like to talk about, kind of why you're drinking, who you're drinking with, and what you're drinking, because that all is going to play effect on your health. In this podcast episode, I'm going to go through 5 things you should consider before you choose to drink. So let's get started. Number 1, why are you drinking? Do you even want to drink, or is it a social pressure or an opportunity to avoid maybe social awkwardness? Do you not want to be that one person that chooses not to drink? This is a huge pressure that I think most people are kind of afraid to admit, but it is something to be aware of, because if you don't want to drink, you don't have to drink. And I think sometimes we have to kind of form that practice on saying no thank you and maybe choosing water or flavored seltzer instead, and kind of cutting back. Or maybe everyone at the table orders sangria and you know that there's too much sugar in the sangria, so you want a glass of wine as another alternative. You could always do that. Are you drinking because you're stressed out and you're trying to forget about a problem? That is a much bigger problem. We can't use alcohol, just like we can't use food, as a crutch, as a way to avoid a bigger situation at hand. Is it because you're drinking because you just like the taste of it, or you just feel like it? Or maybe because you heard that it's heart healthy and it's good for your heart, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. It's important to think about why you're drinking, just so that way you know the reason behind it, and then you can decide if you want to actually choose to pick up the drink or not. If the answer is, I like the taste of it and it pairs well with my nice lean grilled steak, and you're just going to have that 5-ounce portion of wine if you're a female, or 2 5-ounce portions of wine if you're a male, then that's fine, but if it's because of a bigger issue at hand and you're really trying to avoid if you're trying to avoid social awkwardness, if you're trying to avoid a problem, forget about a problem, that's when it becomes a much bigger issue. The number 2 thing you want to think about and consider before you're choosing to drink is, how will this affect my health? Is there a ton of sugar in this beverage, and is it going to raise my blood sugars? Do I have diabetes? It's going to make me go into hyperglycemia. Does it cause inflammation? Some people get an intolerance when they drink and they just feel kind of inflamed and uncomfortable. Is it going to lead to weight gain? Because, alcohol does contain calories, and we have more than 1 or 2 of those drinks with those calories are usually empty calories, and it can cause weight gain. Is it one drink going to lead to another drink? Like, are you able to just have one drink? Or if you choose to drink, is that going to lead to one and then another? Or is it going to open up your appetite? And is it going to make you eat things like an extra serving of food, or maybe makes you want sweet things and then you have dessert? So how is it going to affect your physical health? Does it make you really tired? Do you have a hangover the next day? Does that then lead you to skipping the gym? These are all things that we really, really want to be thinking about on how it's going to affect our health. And then once we know the answer, we then can decide and choose as an adult, if you're going to continue to drink, how much you are going to drink. And number 3, how will this affect my mental health? I touched on it a little bit before. If you're avoiding a bigger problem, that's not great. If drinking for you is not something that you want to do, but you're only doing it because of social pressure, and then you engage in the drinking activity, and you're also on like a healthy eating plan, and mentally it kind of screws you up and you fixate on that and you feel like kind of a failure because you went off of your plan, that's not good either. And that's a bigger issue that we definitely need to address. Is it going to alter your mood, limit your inhibitions, put you in a really terrible, dangerous situation if you're drinking to the point where you're not really sure what's going on, or you're not able to control yourself, your emotions, or even your comments? Maybe you're more outspoken when you drink. That's not great. Now, the big question, how much is too much? How much will get you to that point? Or how much do you have to drink to, have those heart healthy benefits versus making it actually damaging to your heart? So a typical serving of alcohol that, you would be safe with consuming every day, for females, it's going to be 1 serving per day, and 1 serving is 5 ounces of wine or 1.5 ounces of alcohol, like a hard liquor, or 12 ounces of your standard beer. Now, those malt liquors and the fancier beers that are more than that 5% of alcohol does not count. Okay? Now, that's okay for females. For males, you're allowed to have 2 servings per day. The question is your 5 ounces actually 5 ounces? Because unfortunately, what some studies are starting to show is that moderate drinking, which is defined as like 2 to 4 servings of alcohol per day. So instead of having 5 ounces of wine for females, they're having 10 ounces of wine. So 2 glasses of wine or 1 really large glass. Unfortunately, some studies are starting to show links that although that 1 serving is heart healthy, whether it be wine or vodka, alcohol, 1 serving of alcohol raises the good cholesterol in the body, the HDL, whether that is being healthy. But when we go to more of the 2 to 3 servings per day, it's showing that it could potentially raise triglycerides, which can lead to a heart attack, and also putting women more in particular, but men as well, more at risk for certain cancers. And although the studies are ongoing and they're limited, they are pretty promising. And we know heavy drinking is never good. So heavy drinking is defined as 4 or more drinks per day. And binge drinking, which would be like even if you're not having it every day, but you're drinking on the weekends and you're having 4 or more drinks if you're a female or 5 or more drinks if you're a male, binge drinking is not good either. That puts you at a greater risk, double the risk for developing certain cancers or fatty liver disease and high cholesterol and high triglycerides. These are definitely things that should be taken lightly. Like I was saying earlier, alcohol is kind of like this socially acceptable thing. And although it's great it can fit in the diet, and I'm going to get to that in a little bit, it's definitely something that we need to think of almost like as a sometimes drink or a sometimes food or a dessert choice, something that, we can incorporate it, but we should not be incorporating it every day, if we are, we really need to be mindful of the portion. Kind of like if you think about having like a piece of chocolate, like a little piece of dark chocolate every day, if that's going to help to prevent you from, overeating on cakes and cookies and it gives you that little sweetness, that's completely fine. But are you having ice cream with dark chocolate every single day? Very similar to having alcohol every day and like mixing it with other sweetened beverages and having more than you really need. I just also want to take a moment to, like I mentioned earlier, about how alcohol can be good for your HDL, whether it be white wine or red wine. I think people think that the resveratrol from the grapes are what is raising the HDL, and it is, but there's resveratrol is in other things like cranberries and blueberries and peanuts and pistachios. And I also want to just mention that I hear very often that white wine has more sugar than red wine, and that's not necessarily true. Actually, all dry wines, red or white, usually have about 1 gram of sugar per ounce, so typically that 5 ounces will have about 5 grams of sugar. But the sweet dessert wines, those are going to have a little bit more sugar. But to be honest, I'm not really concerned with the dry wines with the sugar. I'm more concerned about those fancy drinks, like for a frozen margarita, for example, is about if you got like a 12 ounces of frozen margarita, it's about 500 calories and 70 grams of sugar. And if you listen to my sugar episode, we know that that's way too much. And, alcohol in excess is never good for the fact that all those things that I just talked about. But your body recognizes alcohol as a drug and a carcinogen. So those are not things that we want to be having on a regular basis. And if you combine that with sugar, which our body which also causes inflammation in the body, it's just not a great combination. And not to mention that, these drinks are very high in calories. So if you're on a weight management plan or a weight loss plan, they're going to carry calories, but they're not really going to make you feel full. Very similar to soda and juice that I've talked about in the sugar episode. It's empty calories. So it's providing calories, but no nutrition. And that's definitely something we need to think about. All right. And number 5, what is the goal? If you are diabetic or you have high triglycerides or fatty liver disease, then this should not be taken lightly. If you are struggling with alcohol dependence, please seek help. They probably look up AA meetings in your area, speak to a professional, maybe a therapist, reach out to somebody that can help you. If you have a medical condition where you need to be limiting your alcohol intake, then I really want you to think about, if you never drink again, it would be completely fine for your health. So you don't need to drink to get that heart healthy benefit. And if you're really struggling with a medical condition that warrants you to limit the amount of alcohol you're taking in, please take that seriously. When it comes to weight management or, controlling of the emotions, these are things that, alcohol can fit in the diet, but it doesn't necessarily need, alcohol can fit in the diet, but it doesn't need to be in the diet. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. And in general health, that's the goal as well. So, if you're just trying to generally be healthy, we just want to practice like we normally practice with healthy eating, which is, you can have it sometimes, but not all the time, maybe decrease the frequency. That brings us to the last point, which is how do you then enjoy alcohol if you want to without it, ruining your health or, going into your diet plan. So number one thing I would say is stick to portion size. Try to, if you have to in the beginning, kind of measure out the wine. It's a little bit more than a half a cup is 5 ounces. A shot of vodka and maybe do vodka seltzer. It's a little bit lighter on the sugar content. Those are definitely kind of ways you can control how much you're taking in. You could cut back on the frequency. So, for example, if you usually drink on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, maybe just drink on Fridays, but don't save all of your alcoholic beverages for that one Friday. You can try lightened up swaps, like instead of doing a frozen margarita, you can do margarita on the rocks. The portion's usually smaller and it usually doesn't have as much sugar and they don't use as much as that heavy syrup, but they still probably do, but at least it's a smaller portion. You can stick with just wine or beer and do a light beer instead of regular beer, pick the dry wines, and instead of having a ton of fancy drinks, maybe just have one of the plain drinks instead. I hope this was helpful. If you have any other questions, comments, concerns, or topics you'd like me to talk about, send me an email to tipswithtony@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And if you're interested on joining my free Balanced Breakfast Challenge, you can do so today by going to www.tipswithtony.com or going to my Instagram page and clicking the link that's in my bio. I am very thankful for you all, so if you don't mind, can you just write a review and some comments? It really helps people find the podcast. Thank you so much. Once again, this is Tony Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time.